Good afternoon, Dr. Sloan, class. My name is Raul, along with my teammates here, Courtney and Nicole. We are going to be presenting on our book presentation that we did. It's called Unlocking Potential, 7 Coaching Skills That Transform Individuals, Teams, and Organizations by Michael Simpson. And I'll hand it over to Courtney.
Great, thank you. So the first thing that we kind of want to set the stage for really what this book was about. And the author did a really great job at kind of, first off, defining coach. And before we can get there, we have to really talk about what in an organization is a coach really responsible for, and that are employees. Employees being one of the most important assets of any organization. So I think that's important to kind of talk about that. The role of a coach is dealing with one of the most important assets that any organization or business has to them. And he really defines coach in a really kind of, I think, simplified way, where he says, unleashing or unlocking the potential of another human being. You're energizing, you're helping someone to optimize and become loyal and profitable. All of those things have to happen by a coach having the ability to unleash or unlock someone's potential as a human being, which is not only a powerful kind of mechanism and that he uses in his definition of what a coach is, but it's also very practical. So that's kind of a great way to set the stage for what we're going to be talking about later in the presentation is, first of all, how did this author define coach? Next slide. Oh. And so when we're thinking about, well, okay, so people in an organization are the most important asset that you have. So coaching, therefore, is all about people. Coaching is not about fixing people. It's about creating an impact. And I think what the author said there and how he emphasized that coaching is not about fixing someone. You're not going and managing someone's problems. Instead, what you're doing is you're opening their mind and their heart and helping them understand their behavior to become and unleash that potential that they already have within them as a human being. So coaching is all about people. It's relationship building. It's helping someone understand how they can make an impact in the world. It's providing them, it's guiding them. What it's not is fixing or managing them, because what that does is then creates this false sense of security in a human being, that they're not able to kind of use that growth mindset themselves and kind of build themselves up and unleash that potential themselves internally. What you're doing is kind of the opposite. So the emphasis on one, people, understanding that people follow people, that's kind of that internal mechanism of coaching in itself, and that it's not about fixing or managing, it's about unleashing that potential. It's about helping someone unlock and discover that kind of internal passion that drives them, and therefore that being able to change their behavior. Next slide. So the book really opens with, okay, now that we've understood that people are the most important asset of any organization, now that we understand the importance of people and the definition of coaching and helping them understand that potential, right? We're not managing someone, we're coaching someone, we're helping them kind of figure out how to best move forward themselves internally as a human being in unlocking that potential. So therefore, we move to what he classifies as, well, what are the 4 principles of coaching? 1 being trust, potential, commitment, execution. And I think this goes back to the overarching idea of kind of relationship building, and that idea of people follow people, people learn from people. And that's really the emphasis of what coaching is. So trust, your intent matters. The way that you approach someone in this sort of relationship is that you're not able to unlock their inner potential if they're not able to trust you. And your intent has to be pure and genuine with this individual. And individuals and humans, as he describes in the book, can kind of sniff out someone who does not enter into this sort of relationship with true intent. So that's important. Potential, everyone can grow. Everyone has that potential. And it's a coach's kind of objective to unlock what that potential is. So that is a very important, I think, principle, and what she talks about in the book, and our team really discussed this, agrees that potential, everyone can grow. Third, we have commitment. So how do you actually unlock that growth mindset, that internal drive? Well, as a coach, you have to be committed to the process. And as a coachee, you have to be committed to the process, right? You're not going to be able to, as they say, as a sports analogy, if you don't finish the game, you don't finish the game, right? there's no sort of moving forward, right? If you're not committed to the process of practice, right? And getting to game time, right? So we kind of use that analogy to think about, well, what was he just talking about when he was talking about the 4 principles of coaching? He was absolutely talking about how committed the coach and the coachee are to the process. And finally, execution. You can have trust, you can unlock potential and help someone understand what their potential is. You can have commitment to the process. Are you actually able to execute the plan that you put in place? If you're not able to actually move forward with the action of the plan, then you're not able to, as he says in the book, arrive at your destination. So unlocking that potential, understanding what it is that you want, right? As a coach, helping that person see that in themselves. It's one thing to see it in yourself. It's another to actually see it and then act upon it. So execution is absolutely necessary in the context of this book. Next slide. Pass it off to Nicole.
Yes, thanks, Courtney. So these are the 7 coaching strategies that he pulls out. There'll be 4 on this page and 4 on our next page. The first is that of building trust and really taking the time to be an active listener as a coach, making the time with your coachees personal and making sure that they understand that they are humans and you see their humanity. Is really what he focused on in this coaching strategy. The second one is challenging paradigms. And here it's really beginning with expressing care and also recognizing that paradigms are harmful or beneficial. And he really wanted to pull that out for those that he was that he's talking about coaching. As you're a coach, as you're supporting those you're coaching, making sure that they understand that there are different elements to the paradigm that they're a part of. Their paradigm is real, but then there are also, it's a personal process to understanding that there are other paradigms that you can possibly be a part of and diagnosing what their current paradigms are and how to get them from one to the next. The next is seeking strategic clarity, which is to help create a mission statement. Basically, as a coach, you are not just directing people from one point to the next point, but you're really helping them create their own personal mission statement is one thing that he brought out in the book. And in order to do that work, we have to really, it goes back to really getting to know the person that you're coaching and understanding their entire circumstance and helping them identify things for themselves that they want to work deeper on, be more purposeful in as they create that professional or their individual mission statement. The fourth one is flawless execution. And that element I interpret as inspiring the drive in others. That was one statement that was pulled out within the text of just really the goal as the coach is not to necessarily have people drive forward your goal, but to make sure that you're inspiring that. Because as we know, people follow people, as Courtney has already said. And if we're just asking people to get on board and come along without that drive or without inspiring that drive, then you're not being a good and successful coach. You can go to the next one, Raul. The fifth one is giving effective feedback. And so here's where it's kind of an oxymoron in the sense of you take a little bit of the personal element away and focus on the data is what he talked about in making sure that you're coaching well. So yes, you build up that personal element with them, you build up the relationship, you make sure that the relationship is forefront, but then when it's time to give them feedback, you make sure that it's not personal or attacking feedback, but that you're focusing on the data that's at hand, the goals that y'all set together. The sixth one was tapping into talent. And this is where you're unleashing all of the potential within individuals and within your organization. And so there are various elements of talent that are circulating within your organization and within a person. As you're giving them feedback on the next steps, you really want them to gain the skills and execute those skills to the next level. They have it within them. You've been able to coach them so far, and you want to really execute those skills in a edifying way that takes them to the next level. And then the last one was moving the middle. Really, everyone needs coaching. Often coaching is seen as, or those who are at the bottom, he talked about in the text, are coached at the bottom, sorry, my words are getting mixed. Those who are struggling within your organization, they get coached, or those who are at the higher end within the organization, they get coached to go on to the next level. But then you have that pocket of individuals within your organization who could really take your whole organization to the next level. And that's where he really focused on everyone needs coaching. It's not just about those who are struggling and need to be coached up, or those who are succeeding and need to be coached on, but really those capitalizing on those who are in your organization that can help your organization flourish that way. You can go ahead to the next slide, Raul. I'll pass it back to Courtney.
Okay, so thank you. So unlocking the potential in education. So I am an educator. I work in higher education. And what this book really kind of showed me about coaching is that it's an important process. I feel like in the field of education, it might be obvious as an instructor or a teacher that you're put into kind of moments where you might be in a situation where you're taking on a coach, where you're trying to unleash and harness that potential in your students. So it's a kind of a natural fit in that sense. And I took that kind of away from the book. But over my career as an educator, I never actually sat down and looked at when he was talking about, okay, let's look at the actual principles of coaching. Let's look at the strategies and the execution. And I think those things are really important if you really want to, especially as an educator, sit down and actually unleash that energy in your students. So it's an important process, is why I took away from it, that requires a coach to truly, or an educator, to immerse themselves, I think, fully into the classroom. It's easier said than done. But one thing that I took away from it was the importance of prioritizing my students. So understanding their vision completely. Again, it goes back to building trust, harnessing that energy, making sure that your students understand you so you can understand their vision, and you start to create that relationship. The other takeaway that I had was moments matter, right? To pay full attention to your students, be with them in the moment, right? So there's a lot of chaos that's happening in the world, but to actually immerse yourself and pay full attention to someone in the moment that they're in and meeting them where they are at that exact moment in time, I think is another takeaway from the strategies then which you talked in the book, where I said to myself, wow, as an educator, I might not do that as well as I should be. Selfless. It's always about the student's journey. And I think as a coach, we are always saying, well, it's always about the coachee's journey. But inevitably, as human beings, sometimes we can go back to when we had those discussions on the advice monster, start to insert ourselves in, well, this is what I did in my career, and this is how it can help you. But it's not about me. It's about my students' journey and how I can be in the moment and help harness their energy for them. So those were right off the bat when I'm thinking about let's unlock the potential of educators today and using these principles of coaching and how we can be better coaches in the classroom. 3 critical things that I found. Next slide, Raul. Unlocking the potential in education goes back to the right kind of help. So the first step in applying coaching skills I found was to recognize that, well, everyone wants coaching, right? Students, especially in the classroom, are in the classroom because for what reason they're in the classroom, personal, professional, they're there to be better. They're there to be more productive and achieve greatness, whether that be graduating into their dream job, finding success in other ways, making friendships. Every one of my students over the years has had different goals in mind, different visions for what their life looks like. So how can I offer them the right kind of help? And so I need to recognize that a lot of my students, everyone wants coaching, right? And that was another big takeaway that the author had that I thought, wow, this really applies to unlocking the power of us educators, because oftentimes we think, well, of course, every student wants instruction. Well, let's go back to really what the classroom environment is today. It's changed a lot over the years, and relationships with students are different, and students are really looking to build trust and are looking for coaching even outside of the topic that I'm teaching in. And so the first thing is, okay, understanding that these students really do want coaching today. They really want to be better. They want to help us educators help unlock that potential in them, not to just sit down, not to be in the moment, not to just give them a grade, but to really truly offer them these strategies of coaching to help them succeed better and in the next course and in the journey that they're in life. So there were so many great takeaways in the book that I am definitely taking away with me as I continue my career as an educator. So now, next slide, Raul, I'll pass it off to Nicole.
So for me, my reflection on this was I really honed in on recognizing that I want to unlock the potential by elevating the greatest strengths of others. Like coaching is a selfless task. Often you think of coaches, you think of what they gain, especially in our society today. People have all these jobs. They're the coaches of this, coaches of that. And so it really just brought me back to the focus of like, when you're a coach, it's not about you at all. It's really about those that you're coaching. And so the two of the things are reflecting, bringing back what I've experienced and what I've done. I've experienced great coaching, and I've done some coaching. And so like thinking about that work and where I fell on the grid. Was I a coach who was thinking about myself, or was I a coach who was being selfless? And really wanting to make sure that I up that commitment for myself. And then that I'm advocating for change for others. Especially in my current role, an advocate of equity in my role, I want to make sure that I'm including access, not just for myself, but for those within our organization, and not just within my department or the families that we serve, but really making sure that others in my organization have that access. The next slide, it's one more. And then unlocking the potential by elevating their strengths by coaching up. So I think that giving effective feedback, which was something that he talked about, was something that I really took to heart. Not making it personal, thinking about the data, and giving effective feedback to those that I coach and those that coach me, so that we can get better. I stated that our organization was in a place where we need support with our coaching and our mentoring right now. And so I think that's an asset that I have. And so I want to encourage others to do the same, so that it can bring our whole organization to the goal of becoming an atmosphere that has better coaching going on. And so those are the things that I'm walking away with as I'm thinking about this book. And I really would like to also bring it to my team.
Thank you, Nicole. And so one of the book resonated with me in a lot of different ways, but especially in my role as a current education consultant, we offer high dosage math tutoring services to schools in need and districts. I particularly work with New Mexico, the state of New Mexico, and we work with a lot of indigenous populations and just a lot of underserved communities. And so relationship building is very, very integral, and to tapping into that talent, one of the main messages. But a lot of the times, I've learned, being coached up and having the benefit of having great coaches, and also coaches that maybe weren't as effective. But a lot of it it's always about, one thing that resonated with me, they said it's not always about the skill, it's about the will, right? So the relationship building is big when you're tapping into that potential, having that individual, empowering that individual to maximize their intrinsic and extrinsic talent that sometimes they feel they've been kind of hidden, or they might have just circumstances that have precluded them from kind of achieving that potential. So it's very big, and that's one of the main messages that resonated with me, as well as this one about the importance of teamwork, right? No matter who the coach is, no matter how effective it is, nobody can do it alone, right? And so just building that team collaboration, the cohesion, that's even like here in this project, all three of us have worked together. We all come from different skills and unique backgrounds. So even if we're working in education or nonprofit work, it's still we still have to work together, right, to kind of get the job done. And like Courtney was saying about earlier about staying in the game, you got to finish the game and executing. So what coaching does is really provide that vision. Sometimes you can have all this talent, but you don't have the discipline, you don't have the direction, and the coaching kind of brings it all together. Effective coaching brings it all together, but it's only done when you're working in collaboration, right? No matter who it is, you could have the greatest coach, but if the team is not really buying into what that person is saying, they're not going to be successful, or as successful as they could be long-term. And then just as far as just some information on the author, Michael Simpson, he's been in the business of executive coaching for almost 30 years. He has a lot of experience. He's actually a senior consultant with Franklin Covey. Everyone knows Franklin Covey's are very influential as far as when it comes to leadership. And he's worked with a lot of Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies. He's a fellow with the Harvard Business. He's a fellow with, I believe, MIT. So he just does a lot of consultant work, and he's been very successful at it. And again, coaching, it really revolves around the pillars of it, right? Trust, communication, building that relationship, teamwork, fostering those authentic over transactional partnerships and relationships. That's the key to unlocking potential. and really maximizing and kind of finding our best selves. So that's what we have. I hope you enjoyed our presentation. It was great. We learned a lot in these past couple of months. So thank you. We look forward to the feedback and class discussions. Have a good day.